Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Our crazy snowstorm is wrapping up this morning across areas of the southern mid-Atlantic and the southeast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed talking about it. And I am going to, say some words towards the end of the video if you want to stay tuned for that. But we're going to fully move past this storm system now and start all over. Try to figure out what's next. Is there any other storm signals we're watching? Any kind of big shots of cold air? What does the pattern look like between now and about mid-February? We might extend it a little deeper into February past that also. So we're here to talk about that. My name is Mitch. Good Sunday morning. I hope you guys are doing well and staying warm out there. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video if you like it. And more importantly, if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please drop it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So we're going to start off by talking about what's next. Is there any kind of storm systems we're seeing? Anything like that? I want to start off in the central U.S., which, by the way, I think is going to be very dry for the foreseeable future. So I only have the Euro pulled up for the central, and then we'll go into the eastern U.S., where we might have a little bit higher chances at something happening. So we're going to start off with Monday evening tomorrow, and the blue is snow, green is rain, and any kind of orange or pink you see is a wintry mix. And we move forward, a little bit of clipper action up there in the northern sections of the country. And then there is a system that's going to try to come together about midway this coming work week. And a little bit of cold air is in place, but for the most part, this is a much warmer system compared to the system that we are still dealing with right now. But we could get some rain down in Arkansas and some rain down into the western areas of the Mid-South and Deep South and eastern Tennessee. And it could interact with some cold air. You can see some blue over there on your screen. We'll talk about the eastern U.S. first. Skip ahead if you don't live in the central U.S., so obviously you probably don't care too much about it. No offense to you guys, but you continue to move forward until later this coming week, and there is some energy in the pattern. You can tell by looking at the 540 line how it's kind of bending to the southwest. So there's energy here. It's just not digging properly to really fire off a lot of moisture. So we continue to move forward. We get towards the end of this work week and we get into next weekend. There's just not a whole lot showing up here. And then we start to get about, 8-9 days out. Still not a whole lot. There's a little bit of moisture shooting through kind of underneath the ridge, some cut off energy. And then at the very end of the run, and this really isn't the end of the run, but this is kind of where I'll stop it, like 10 days out, there is the potential for a significant pattern change. And of course, we'll get more confident on that as we get closer. But with that pattern change, we could get one or two very strong storm systems. I would say about 10 days into February. We're watching for that. And, the Euro from overnight shows the idea of this. There is a 997 low cutting across the country. And when that happens, of course, you can get some dynamic weather, and then that cruises through. After that, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, it does show a deeper shot of cold air with a storm system digging in, but I mean, it's past 300 hours out. Excuse me. Now, we look at the eastern U.S. And start off Monday. Our system is exiting off the East Coast. What's next? We get into Tuesday, and then we get into Tuesday night, getting into Wednesday morning. And there's some snow breaking out once again across areas in Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Ohio, and then a little bit get into West Virginia. And then it looks to get pretty heavy. I mean, this is Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. It doesn't look like there's quite enough cold air in place for areas further south, but the mountains could certainly get some snow off this. Could this trend a little bit colder for areas of Tennessee where you guys could get more snow? Absolutely, it could. We just got to watch. I mean, this thing's kind of right up on us. This doesn't look like a significant winter storm, but it could drop a few to several inches of snow. We just got to figure out the details of this. We continue to move forward, and this does bring some light snow across Virginia in the mid-Atlantic, but it looks to be mainly rain into the southeast. But there is a sign that some energy tries to build before this kind of moves off the coast of the southeast. You can see how the moisture is trying to really build back in, some cold air trying to drop back on it, and we're getting into Thursday morning. And it does try to show a little bit of a wintry mix into South Carolina Thursday morning. And that is something to just watch. Nothing that I'm getting hyper-focused on right now. But some of the AI models are showing this too. But anyways, you continue to move forward. And we get into Friday morning. And there's a big clipper showing up towards the end of this work week. You can see there's a lot of snow associated with this. The trough axis, which we'll talk about here in a second, is positioned too far east for this to really dig and become a bigger system. That could shift, but we're kind of running out of time. This is in the medium range for it to make any substantial changes one way or the other. But this is going to bring some central to northern Appalachian Mountain snowfall, and it even shows a little bit of snow trying to dip down as far south as northern North Carolina, and then we have a northwest flow event after that. And what comes after that? I do think we could get a warm up about 7-8 days into February, and you can tell how that 540 line begins to get all the way up into Canada and Maine. So this is probably warmer conditions. How warm? I'm not sure. 50s, 60s maybe. But this is typical February stuff. You know, when you get in the South in February, you start to get a little bit of the shifting of seasons. It's very small at first, but by the end of the month, you can really start to see changes. But you continue and you get to about the 11th, the 12th. There's a big old system cutting across, and then there's a chance. I'm really watching mid-month for things to get wild again across the lower 48. I think it could be mostly quiet over the next 10 days. Nothing significant, nothing crazy or anything like that, but I really think after the 10-day mark in February, things can get haywire again, and I'll explain why as we move deeper in this video. But the GFS, what does it show this morning? And, you know, a little bit of kind of just northern stream action here, and then here comes our system that the Euro is showing, and there it is, some snow breaking out across northern Kentucky, southern Ohio, southern Indiana, getting into West Virginia. It looks a little bit warmer than the Euro, which normally is the vice versa there. And then we got some snow moving into northern Virginia, and DC on this would get some moderate to maybe even heavy snow off this. And then we move forward, and then you can see how the moisture tries to build back in. This is Wednesday afternoon, a little bit earlier in the Euro, and it does show some snow at the tail end of this in northeast North Carolina, southeast Virginia. Doesn't look like a big event, but both models are showing it. Most model guides are showing it. Then we get this big old souped up clipper that dives in, just like the Euro is showing. And listen, this can do some wild stuff in the Great Lakes region into the Ohio Valley later this coming work week and drop several inches of snow. And in fact, it gets all the way down into the southern and central Alps. And if this actually happens, what the GFS is showing, this would be a pretty aggressive northwest flow event across West Virginia. And then after that, we could get a nasty shot of Arctic air. Very cold air into areas of the eastern U.S. This weekend. And, you know, hey, the GFS tries to show something popping off here. It's going to be a lot of energy involved. I just think all the energy is positioned too far to the east to really pop off any significant event. You get about 10 days out. The GFS is different in the Euro, and it shows a system trying to dive in, and it shows a little bit of snow across the mid-south, the southeast, even South Carolina, a little slither of snow there. And then it kind of shows a kind of a juiced up system, just like the Euro, give or take a day. And, you know, after we get past the 300 mark, there's no point really looking at it much. Now, the Euro AI from this morning, remember, this just shows precipitation. It doesn't show if it's snow or green, or if it's snow or rain. So we just kind of have to figure it out, and you're going to take my word for it. But there is that system that is going to show up kind of mid-work week over the next few days across the Tennessee Valley, the deep south. This will all be all rain down here, but this could be a little bit of snow on the northern fringe of it. And there it is, trying to back build in right there. This is a trend to watch. Can we trend to something, I don't know, more significant here? I don't know. We'll have to watch, but cold air is trying to move into this moisture, and it actually does catch up and drops a little bit of snow across areas in North Carolina on this run. And in fact, you can see there's moisture kind of over areas of the Carolinas. It almost looks like the event that just happened, except less moisture. And if you look at temperatures, it's, you know, marginal, but not quite there. But we move forward after that, and there's that clipper, just like the GFS and Euro shows. And then that gets off the coastline. Then here's another clipper, and then we get about 10 days out. And it's just kind of everywhere. The Euro AI is definitely a little bit different than the Euro, and kind of has more of a northwest to southeast flow rather than a southwest to northeast flow. So we'll see what happens there. But, you know, moving forward and just explaining the pattern itself, this is the upper pattern. This is, you know, we're not going to geek out with you too much. I don't even have, honestly, the energy to do it right now. But, you know, the blues are the lower heights, lower pressure, storminess, shots of cold air. So, you know, we take it till late this work week. You can see the lower pressure, lower heights back over the eastern U.S., and that makes sense because, like I said, about midweek, we do have a storm system around and a low pressure trying to develop off the coast of the southeast. Just don't think there's going to be enough cold air involved. So, you know, it makes sense that we're seeing this off the Euro ensemble here, spiking ridge, still allowing energy to sort of slide down. And into the eastern U.S., things like that. So we move forward, and one thing that you'll see as we get to this weekend, the trough axis is shifted very far east. So I'm going to draw on this a little bit. We got the ridge right here, and then we got the trough kind of right into here. Spiking ridge, trough, but it is just too far to the east to have any kind of significant storm systems. This is definitely going to slide down some cold air from the high latitudes. Maybe a deep shot of cold air this weekend. But this entire trough axis right here is just, this ridge axis is just positioned too far to the east. Therefore, your trough axis is positioned too far to the east. Therefore, a lot of energy can still dig down into here. But by the time it tries to pop off, a stronger storm system, it's way off the coast of the eastern U.S. And any kind of moisture that pops off, any kind of potential low pressure would just do it over the ocean, if that makes sense. So if this trough axis was positioned kind of over this region, okay, then we might be dealing with another winter storm chance. But that could change. So moving past this time frame, there's that little warm-up that we're seeing on the Euro ensemble. A little small-scale warm-up here. And then at the very end of the run, you see a lot of blue pop up in the lower 48. There are signals towards, I would say, just past the day 10 mark of February that we're going to get a lot of cold air that dumps into the lower 48. And I think polar vortex disruptions is going to be a few words that you hear a lot, that we were hearing a lot back in December. And sure enough, I think we're going to start hearing it a lot again. And that's because we're showing a lot of intense blocking in the higher latitudes. And this is probably going to disrupt a lot of cold air back into the lower 48. And I think areas further west will be involved with this too. But at the very end of the run, which I know is a very unreliable time frame, it shows lower heights stretching across the lower 48. And this indicates to me that, with this blocking that we have right here, we're probably going to get a lot of cold air dropping down into the lower 48. Now, what about your storm track? We got to figure that one out. And I'm having to drown out a bird that's outside my window right now that is just tweeting like crazy. But if you do look at the day 5, the day 15 temperature anomaly, it still shows warmer than average temperatures across the central to western U.S., but we hang on to at least average to below average temperatures for the eastern U.S. This is basically from this coming Thursday, all the way to February the 15th. So still says, hey, we hang on to below average temperatures. I just think it's going to be pretty dry for the central and eastern U.S. And I don't see any huge storm systems. And, the browner colors you see, this is the Euro ensemble for precipitation 15-day anomaly. So it's below average, which means we're probably going to be mainly dry. That doesn't mean we're not going to get any moisture. But you can tell the pattern coming up supports cold in the eastern U.S., but dry. And this makes sense when you look at this. If you look at the day 6, the day 10 outlook from the temperatures here, from the Climate Prediction Center, leaning towards below average temperatures across the blue area, especially the darker blue into the purple you get, and then above average temperatures return for the central U.S. and remain for the western U.S. You guys have just not had any kind of big winter storms or Arctic air, or you just haven't had a lot of winter out west or anything like that. So if you look at the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, you can tell there's almost a zonal dry look here. And the brownish color, that is where they're saying, hey, there's a good chance at below average precipitation. Now the northern sections here leaning towards normal to the chance at above average precipitation. So this tells me that the pattern is probably going to support some clippers up here, but it's going to remain pretty dry across the middle of the country. Now, if you look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, this takes us from the 8th through the 14th, and it looks about the same. Confidence is not quite as high on the below average temperatures, but confidence is still pretty high. So same thing, you look at, I thought I had this pulled up, but I guess I didn't. If you look at the precipitation outlook from the 8 to 14 day, I am low on energy this morning. The 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook, it shows that, hey, things are about to get juiced up again in this time frame. And I really think that makes sense because I really think we're going to have a bit of a pattern change in this time frame. Normally when you have a pattern change, you get a couple big time storm systems, and it still looks like we're leaning towards below average precipitation across the eastern U.S., but it's starting to get to near normal again for certain areas also. So yeah, I knew I did that here. So to kind of stop it right there, I want to talk on the pattern from about, I want to say, week 3 to week 4. So this is starting off about Valentine's Day, you might as well say, but mid-month. And I just showed you this. This is the Euro ensemble at about day 15. And you can see a lot of those blues return down to the lower 48, which indicates we have blocking up here. And our energy is about to get going in this area. And we're about to get a lot of cold air dropping down from the higher latitudes down to the lower 48. Makes sense. We're starting to get this look where we're getting that negative EPO. We do have a negative PNA, which means a trough out west, but we have intense blocking showing up over the higher latitudes, negative NAO, negative AO. So all that's just fancy teleconnection terminology for blocking in the higher latitudes over the Arctic region. So this is going to dislodge what I think is going to be a cross-polar flow. And if you kind of connect the dots here and then you look at the Euro extended, it really shows this. It looks like it potentially dumps out west first. So you guys are going to abruptly shift back to winter. And if you keep going here, it looks like it positions itself over the central to eastern U.S. after that. And I mean, this is getting late in the game. I mean, we're starting to get into, February 15th to the 20th to the 25th, but we've had some wild winter weather in late February, even for the South. So I don't think we're done yet. But you continue to move forward, and that look continues, throughout the rest of February. I mean, you're starting to see the ridge beginning to flex, but that's going to support below average temperatures. And this is the 32-day temperature anomaly here. This takes us from pretty much right now all the way through the first few days of March. And if you average all these days together, the Euro extended here, the weeklies, likes the idea of just a below average February, basically. And this makes sense because if you look at the week 3 to 4 temperature outlook, they're leaning towards below average temperatures in this time frame. This is from the 14th to the 27th. This was issued a couple days ago. So, it's definitely going to remain winter-like across the eastern half of the country. And if you look at the precipitation outlook, for the most part, it's just equal chances with a couple areas that have a shot at more precipitation compared to average. And then you look at just the monthly temperature outlook. This is literally the monthly temperature outlook. So this is for February. And as a whole, it makes sense because what we just showed you with the weekly shows below average temperatures for the eastern U.S. So to kind of sum all that up, it's going to be a chilly February for the east. The big question is, are we going to have any kind of big winter storms? So we'll figure that one out. I don't have a daily forecast. I just want to put this video together. To be quite honest with you, I kind of wanted to skip this morning. So just going to talk to you guys a little bit. If you're not into this, just skip off the video here. But now that we're wrapping this snowstorm up, if I'm being completely real with you guys, completely honest, I actually enjoyed the days leading up to that snowstorm more than yesterday, the day of the snowstorm itself. And if you follow me on X, you probably know why, but it just was a big bust here. And I wouldn't call it a bust. I think that's being ungrateful to say that, but I think at one point here in the National Weather Service in Columbia, I think they were calling for 6 to 8 inches of snow. And I think that I bought too much into that, I think at a personal level. So in my head, I'm thinking, man, we're at least going to get 5 inches of snow. And I think I just got too much into that. And I think we ended up, I'm looking outside right now. I think we ended up with 2.5, 3 inches of snow at my location. And I guess that, I don't know, I guess it's a couple things here. I think I was relying on yesterday to kind of get the adrenaline going, and that was going to kind of drive my energy because I was crashing all week really bad, just pumping out content, doing these videos. I was so excited that I couldn't even sleep, 3 to 4 hours of sleep at night over the last, and I got a good night's sleep last night. But so I think I was kind of relying on, and I assumed it was going to happen on yesterday's snowstorm to sort of spike the adrenaline, and then spike the energy. But I found myself, it just never really happened. I think the entire storm here was made up of one really nice burst of snow for 45 minutes. 45 minutes. And I mean, it was awesome when it was happening. Some of you guys saw the video. I mean, it was some of the heaviest snow I've ever seen in my life. And it was beautiful, but it lasted for 45 minutes. And basically, the rest of the storm from about 8 a.m. till about last night was just light dandruff flurries. It was like a flizzard, a flurry blizzard. But listen, it was a great storm. I was hoping for more. It's a bit of a bummer. I'm not going to sit here and shy away from that, but I don't want to sound like I'm being ungrateful, and I know a lot of people are going to take it like that. But I think when you just put so much energy into something, you kind of set yourself up for a letdown if it doesn't work out. And I think that pretty much sums up what happened with me. So I started getting some bad feelings about the storm about mid-morning from my location. When I was seeing some trends on some of the short range models that were kind of shifting the axis of heavier snow to my north. And just the fact that the storm itself was just very bandy, if that makes sense. Meaning, you know, if you weren't in that huge axis of snow like Charlotte and the Piedmont were getting, then the rest of the storm was just sort of give or take. And if you didn't get up under one of those bands, I mean, you were probably just going to end up with a couple inches. For example, that band did set up kind of around northeast Georgia, and I was seeing some totals, and it was like 5 to 8 inches of snow. And then right up the road from me, a couple counties up the road got 5 inches of snow. And you know, it was a weird storm. The only part of the storm that I think that just got slammed was the eastern section of the Carolinas and that upper level low up into the Piedmont of South Carolina. And North Carolina. So I do want to say congrats to you folks in Charlotte. You know, you guys have been kind of hoodooed lately with the snow. And listen, we talked about it in the days leading up how that storm, this storm had a chance to really overachieve in that area. And that's exactly what it did. And some areas got well over a foot, you know, north of Charlotte, which was an area that was a little bit more tricky up into Greensboro, and just a few areas there, you know, got 13, 16 inches of snow. So it was a fantastic storm for everybody. It just underachieved for certain areas, and it was a weird one when it comes to that, and it was an extremely tough forecast. But you know, looking at all the comments pouring in and stuff like that, it seems like I'm the only one being the Debbie Downer about this, because everybody else is just excited we got snow. And I need to do a better job of just taking in that mentality. But like I said, I think that I was just burning it on both ends all week. So in my head, I kind of drilled that this was going to happen. And I just kind of neglected any kind of fail modes, letdown modes, because literally every model run from my area in Columbia, I don't think any of them showed like just 2 to 3 inches of snow. But anyways, going to go out there and enjoy it. It's very cold. It was a very cold snow. That's another thing is, what's up with all these winter storms in the South that it's like snowing in like 18 degrees? I'm like, I kind of miss those snowstorms that, you know, it's 28, 32 degrees. You know, you got those fat cotton ball snowflakes. And this dry snow is just, I'm not a big fan of it. Maybe it's just because the last 2 dry snow events we've had here in Columbia last year and yesterday have just been kind of underachievers. But I know that some people, it's going to sound like I'm complaining, and maybe I am. Maybe I am. I am human. But my emotions, I told you guys leading up to this event, my emotions were heavily involved in this storm system. Heavily involved. So I set myself up for failure with that. So I'm gonna do better in the future, but at the same time, not be negative. So just wanted to share that with you guys, how I felt. Probably going to be quieter over the next couple of days. I really need to get my energy back and just kind of get it back going. So I probably won't have a video tonight. We're probably just going to take a break from that. There's no point in doing that for now. But it's time to rest up, recoup, because I don't think we're done. I think we'll be tracking something sometime this month for the South once again, and certainly for other areas of the country. So it's time to rest up and have fun with what we got, keep it rolling. But you guys enjoyed the snow today. You know, a lot of people got just absolutely crushed. It was a storm that a lot of people will remember. So appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Thank you for the support. I'll never get caught up with the comments. So just thank you for everybody who said kind things, that supported me in this storm, that kind of rallied behind me. And it means the world. At the end of the day, we got a snowstorm, and that's all that matters. God bless. Have a wonderful day.